Anna Kasparian is just another right-winger who was pretending to be a left-winger. I knew she was going to make this why I left the left type of BS that these right-wingers love to do when they leave the left. She just hates trans people and can't hide it anymore.
I'm going through something very real and very sincere, and it's uncomfortable, and it has not been an enjoyable process for me. It's been difficult. And so, the internet being what it is, all sorts of people from all sorts of political ideologies have theories on like what's actually happening with me, right? And the main accusation, both from the left and the right, is that I'm grifting, which is hilarious because literally nothing has changed about my work life. I'm in the
The only thing that has changed is you become a transphobic trash.
same place. I have the same audience. The audience doesn't like some of what I have to say or some of the new conclusions I've come to.
Yeah, and those conclusions are that you're anti-trans, and the audience that you claim to still watch you has stopped watching you.
And so I wanted to kind of set the record straight about what I have personally experienced. I don't know what my political labels are at this point, right? Because I feel like I don't really fit anywhere. And that's just full honesty. It's again very uncomfortable for me. And I want to say that out of any point in my adult life, this is probably the point where I'm the most malleable and open to new information.
Yeah, most malleable and open to new information, which she's saying, yeah, I'm going to become a right-winger and a bigot.
This comes after a transgender producer employed by the Young Turks posted a video sharing that they are leaving the network over what they say is Kasparian and co-host Cenk Uyghur's complicity in anti-LGBTQ sentiment.
Friend of the show, Alayemi Olarin, weighed in on the drama. She actually popped in on a live stream of a YouTube show called The Vanguard Boys to offer her perspective as they were covering the Anna Kasparian commentary and basically expressed some frustration that despite trying to stay out of it, she recently went on Young Turks to very patiently try to push back against some of the takes that they've had with respect to criminal justice issues. She, as a public defender, has a lot of expertise in that area and a very distinct position that was different from theirs. And she has been tried to like have constructive conversations in her view and been very cordial and polite to them. And still, she gets a lot of pushback of a less cordial nature, I think is how she would describe it.
Yeah, because people are tired of transphobic people, insulting them, being trash, and trying to erase their existence. I knew the moment she said, I'm tired of being called a birthing person, that she was going to become a right-winger, and she was exposing herself as a right-winger.
And so there was some frustration that she expressed that even though everyone has kind of gone out of their way to try to be patient with Anna Kasparian and to give her a lot of grace as a member of the community, that there was some frustration with how she's characterizing how she's being treated by the left. Whether or not you want to call it a grift or what have you.
What does grift even mean at this point? I would use that word to describe someone, I guess, who I suspect is insincerely pretending to change their beliefs for.
Yeah, Anna was pretending to be on the left so that she could pretend to be an ally and get money. And now that she is getting upset about the terms birthing person, she wants to expose herself and tell the world that she's actually a right-winger and she hates trans people.
Or more clout, or to reach a bigger audience or different audience. Maybe that applies to certain figures who are ostensibly progressive and now, they still say they're progressive, but they're, mostly talking about right-wing stuff, or where they happen to agree with the right wing, maybe on trans issues or COVID or something. I don't know.
If you agree with the right wing on one issue or two issues, you're a right-winger no matter what you claim to say, because if you're transphobic or a bigot in any way, you're not a leftist. You're just pretending.
I frankly don't know if this applies to Anna. It sounds like maybe she's sincerely changed her mind. I mean, she's consciously saying, I don't really associate myself with all leftist views anymore. Maybe I don't know, I've changed. I haven't significantly changed, I don't think, any of the policies I really support over the last few years, but living in a city as crime has gotten worse made me rethink, again, not like fundamentally change my outlook on criminal justice reform, but made me a little bit more inclined to go, well, maybe there's something that needs to be confronted here.
Is this guy saying that their cops need more money so they can beat down more black people?
It's not a grift. It's just like the experience of life. I hadn't really thought about vaccine mandates very hard for most of my life, or I would have said you should have them for schools.
I'll tell you
and now I've thought about it. Now I have a radically different view on it.
What, you don't think kids need to be vaccinated for schools? Like, are you that stupid?
Typically, the argument about it being a grift is this. Anna has demonstrated a really competent understanding of why it is that the left, many people on the left, think it's perfectly reasonable and even good to respect people's pronouns, to use language that acknowledges what many in the mainstream and on the right characterize as goofy, if not harmful, things like the phrase birthing people, or the most recent controversy is referring to trans men as having bonus holes instead of vaginas because of their dysmorphia. And
Yeah, I mean, if you have such an issue with people wanting to term their own parts what they want, you're just a stupid bigot, and you need to stop pretending you're on the left because you're not.
Sorry.
Anna in the past, and I don't know if we have this clip, has articulated very clearly why, if you want to be accommodating or kind to those people, you can think dysmorphia is mental illness and characterize it however you want, but if you acknowledge that they obviously are having some dissonance with the way they were born versus how they feel that they are in a clinical setting, using language that is enabling them to get the health care they need, it's hard for me to see why anyone would have a problem with that.
I mean, this type of person would have the same issue with a black person calling themselves a person when we used to consider black people to be property.
Kasparian has articulated that exact belief within like the last year, arguing against conservatives who would reject that kind of language. And now, without any real reckoning with that previous clip that's gone viral many times now, she has reversed course on that particular issue. And after years, I mean, Young Turks is the oldest left media institution I believe that there is, a real front runner in the online media space. After years of speaking very specifically and knowledgeably about any number of criminal justice issues, with the world being what it is for all of that time, crime didn't just come anew during this time. Nothing has really changed substantively in the way of the world. A sudden decision to say, well, the left just doesn't care about victims of crime.
The left cares the most about the victims of crime, which is why the left is trying to stop right-wingers from victimizing everybody that they can. And if you're upset about that, you're definitely a right-winger.
I mean, some people make that argument and they don't know better. The left's argument isn't that it's not horrible when people are victims of crime on subways or in their communities. The left's argument isn't that we should let gun violence go unchecked because it would be bad to arrest people who murder. That's not what criminal justice reform is about. It's not what police abolition is about. It's not what any of this is about. The whole question is whether or not we can lower crime rates more effectively than throwing money at police budgets has done by.
Well, yeah, it's been proven that giving cops, billions of dollars doesn't stop crime. All they do is abuse people and commit more crimes. We need to reform cops, punish them for the crimes that they commit, and then do more for the communities and, that are supposedly, crime infested, because the root of the issue needs to be addressed. Just throwing a bunch of poor people in jail doesn't stop the issues of what's going on. The issue is these people don't have enough money, and that is caused by systemic racism.
Addressing the root causes of the crime, right? And Anna knows that. So to know that, to have said that, to have articulated that so many times in the past, and now take a different approach where you characterize, I would argue mischaracterize what the left's agenda has been. The left agenda that you have been a part of is causing people to really wonder what's motivating that shift. And given that we live in a media climate where, like it or not, there is an enormous appetite for people who leave the left. Dave Rubin is often brought up as an example of this. People who say, I'm an independent thinker. I can't be put in a box.
Dave Rubin is just another quote unquote left winger who went right, and that's because he hates gay people, and he knows the right wing hates gay people, and that's why he's joined them. Though it's funny how the right wing hates him and hates the fact that he is married to a dude and wanting to have kids, because right wingers hate the idea of gay people raising kids with love and kindness, though I doubt Dave Rubin actually loves and cares about his kids.
Box. I'm willing to challenge the establishment. I'm really willing to challenge orthodoxies. Sometimes that's authentic, and that's fine. But we also have to acknowledge that there's an appetite for that. And one wonders, given some of the struggles that all online creators have dealt with, especially in like the post kind of Bernie world on the left, whether or not there is an effort to attract a bigger audience by taking on subjects that are hot topics right now, and that the left typically has been on the less sexy side of.
Yeah, I mean, you would know that better than me. From observing it from a distance, it looks to me like whatever the Bernie wave has crested, and it's harder to draw an audience by just by talking. I mean, we can tell from the kinds of things we talk about on this.
People's inability to afford rent, and their medical debt, and the cost of food, and the exorbitant cost of education. Yes, these are issues which poll as people's priorities, but which they don't seem especially interested in hearing about in a news context.
Yeah, or at least on YouTube, right? I mean,
Sure,
the model for Anna's show and for our show, and you got to talk about what the viewers are interested in. So
well, you don't gotta. I mean, Young Turks is hardly. I mean, there are a lot of different, very successful independent media shows that are still very supportive of trans rights and issues. So,
not as much if both Anna and Shank Huger are becoming anti-trans. They're showing how that they're truly right-wingers.
It's hardly the case. I think that, well, if you want Young Turks to survive, they've got to go anti.
Is she not supportive of trans?
No, she is. She is. And the point that she's making in that clip is that she's still supportive.
No, she's not supportive of trans person if she's going to fight against them because the term birthing person is used. She's showing that she hates trans people.
It's people's rights to health care and housing and all of those substantive rights, which I think is important. And I don't think it's useful to lump her in with your average.
We need some middle ground language to refer to some of the requests or asks coming from activists on behalf of trans issues that to use terminology that is, again, cringe
but that's
or something.
The thing.
That's
Who's
not,
making the
I'm
ask?
not going to...
And it's not like people were actually telling Anna that she's the birthing person. It's what people want to use for themselves. And she was so upset with that term that she had to make some kind of tweet on Twitter about it. She's just trash.
I don't want to deride people as mentally, the conservatives will say, some conservatives, Matt Walsh, I believe, are mentally deranged. That's really mean and alienating and not true. And you shouldn't diagnose people from a distance.
Right.
Or also, no, we'll just say whatever anyone wants, no matter how awkward that language is.
But here's the problem. One UK cancer group, I think, so not our country and not indicative of the broader views even within that country, one group has a conversation about whether or not it would make trans men feel better to use terminology other than vagina when they don't identify as women. And suddenly...
Why would somebody else have a problem with what somebody wants to term their parts? Like, if you're upset about how some rando wants to term their parts, you're just trash. That's all it is.
Across the pond, Anna Kasparian, who ostensibly has all these other concerns as a leftist, is making that into a national case where she is saying, you don't refer to my vagina as a bonus hole, which nobody ever did, right? Like the whole.
Yeah, nobody has described her as anyway. It's trans people describing themselves as they want to, and Anna, being anti-trans, is upset with these terms.
Conversation is about whether or not trans men should have that term applied to them. And this really maps on to the earlier controversy she was engaged with in the spring, where she insisted that it was disrespectful to her to be referred to as a birthing woman. I think it's fine for her to articulate that she would prefer to be called a woman and not a birthing person, or whatever she prefers to be called. Anna Kasparian, God bless, whatever.
Yeah, but nobody was calling her a birthing person. She just decided to wake up one day and be like, yeah, I hate this term and I hate trans people.
She wants to be called. But it is dishonest to say that someone else who wants to be called something else is infringing on your self-identification by simply talking about their own self-identification. And that's why people were upset. No one could find the human being that once referred to Anna Kasparian as a birthing person. No one could source this person who allegedly has infringed upon her rights to self-identification.
Because nobody has. Nobody has ever considered Anna Kasparian as a birthing person because they don't care.
By insisting on her being a birthing person other than a woman. I think we can all agree that her self-identification matters, and I'm happy to, and only have, referred to her as a woman. But now she and others seem to be infringing on other people's rights to be referred to as they want to be referred to. If Jordan Peterson, who was it that said that, who claimed that being called cis is a pejorative? Was it Jordan Peterson?
It probably was Jordan Peterson. There are so many people on the right that claims that calling people cis is a slur, and it's hilarious. They want to try to equate cis with like the N-word, and that is not any way the same. These people are just wanting to pretend to be victims while they victimize other people.
This,
It was someone from that
Elon
world.
said they were going to not
That's fine.
allow, I don't know.
You know, it's difficult to, I don't know how else one refers to, you know, if you want to be called, you know, born biological man, a man, whatever.
I mean, I think the point
know,
of that was just to deny that the trans category exists.
right, and
You're a man or a
that's the
woman.
problem. And so the word cis doesn't exist because you want to stigmatize people who aren't trans or anything. But if you have a word trans and you're trying to identify, say that someone's not trans, you can say they're not trans. That's fine, I guess. But cis
You
is
would
just a word
say
that means
they're
not
a man,
trans.
or you just say a woman.
Yeah, cis just means a person that was born the gender that they feel comfortable with. Trans is people that are born a gender and they're uncomfortable with. That's just what it is.
Well, no, I wouldn't, because the whole point of the matter is that trans women identify as women. They describe themselves and believe that they are and feel and experience the world as women, and so they want something that there's a term,
Right,
a
that's
need
what
for a
the
term.
argument is over.
Exactly. So the war against cis is not a war against their self-identification. It's really a war against trans people's right to identify as trans, and that.
Yeah, because trans people have decided the identity that they want. And if a person like Anna Kasparian has an issue with that, she can just go and throw herself into the trash.
Really illuminating. So when someone who like
Well, no,
Elon
you
or
can identify
whomever,
as trans. You're a man, you're a trans man, etc.
well, no, that's like saying I have a yellow piece of paper and a white piece of paper, and I'm a paper and
That is
you're
what you
not
have.
because you're white paper. No, they're both paper, but this one's yellow and this one's white.
That's paper.
This is also
That's
paper.
yellow paper.
This is also paper. And unless you're saying, and you have every right to say this, unless you're saying that in no way, shape, or form does anybody's identity matter, and if you're a trans woman, you're really a man, and that's a stance that a lot of people have.
You're a trans woman.
Right.
Anybody can identify themselves the way they want. And if somebody has an issue with that, they're just basically a bigot. That's all it is. Trans people can identify themselves as trans as much as they want. They can describe themselves whatever they want. And just because you have an issue with that, It's just whatever.
But they're both paper. They're both women is the argument. They're both women. One's a cis woman and one's a trans woman.
What we're saying is we don't need really a separate category for this, which is like, we would stack the papers up to the ceiling versus like 3 of
No, there's always going to be like a way to identify whatever. That's why we call yellow paper, and white paper, paper. We call trans people trans because that is what they are. Cis people are cis people, as a way to identify those that are comfortable with the gender that they were birthed as.
those. And we're not trying to disinclude the yellow
But you
papers.
literally are. Not you,
No,
but I'm saying
I'm not
people are
saying the
making
yellow
these arguments.
paper is
It's paper.
tree. It's
No,
yeah, it's yellow paper.
You're dancing around trying to avoid calling this thing paper. It is paper.
Whatever. I don't care.
But that's the point.
least
So
bit,
you don't
but-
have to agree with it.
No, I'm avoiding calling this stack some other terminology here. It's just paper.
Look, I think it's evident from
Okay, yeah, we can call all people people, but we still want to identify certain people a certain way, and they want to identify themselves a certain way, and that is acceptable. If you have an issue with that, if you want to scream at trans people about being called a birthing person, you're just trash. That's all it is.
this hypothetical, that this example, exactly what the issue is here. So just own it. People can own Anna, whomever. I don't think Anna believes this. I don't think that she believes that trans women, well, I don't know what she believes anymore, but I wouldn't have thought that she would believe that trans women don't have the right to identify as women.
That's what she's basically getting at, that they don't have the right to describe themselves as the way they want, because she is upset that they are describing themselves as the way they want, because it somehow affects her when it does not.
If everyone respects self-identification, if the issue is Anna's ability to identify as a woman with a vagina, then it's also a trans person's right to identify as a woman with a vagina if they've post-op, or a woman with a penis, or a woman who can give birth, and all these things that I know sound silly because they go against what our understanding of the world in the sex binary has been.
Okay, yeah, people used to have an issue with black people describing themselves as people, but nowadays we understand that black people are people and they're not property.
That we were all raised with and has been existent in some form or another in Western society since time immemorial. And I say Western society because there have been differences in different societies that have had more more sex categories than that.
I think we can accommodate without reinventing the original term as well.
Nobody's reinventing the original term. You guys are stupid here. Cis people are still the same as the before. Trans people are the same as they always been. Trans people and cis people have always existed. It's just now we have terms for them.
What I would strive
But
for.
you struggle to do that even with the example of the
I mean,
paper.
I don't care. I'll do whatever I'm
I mean, look at Greek history. Trans people were called hermaphrodites after the goddess and god Hermes and a hermaphrodite. They knew these people existed and they accepted them, just like many other various religions that accepted trans people. That these people have always existed, and the fact that it's somehow an issue now just shows how much people are just shitty.
I'm doing for the sake of I'm trying to present the conservative or the position.
Yeah, no, I
on this.
understand. I know you're steel manning this, and I think that's helpful, and I appreciate you doing that. But
We have the terms two-spirit by various native tribes who also understood that trans people existed. Even though they didn't have the term trans and cis, they knew these people existed and they were accepted.
question, like, I just want to be really clear. I don't think that Anna Kasparian or anybody in the world is wrong to have feelings about how they are described in the world. You can have that. But at a certain point, you have to acknowledge that other people's self-identification may have implications for you. If I
No, somebody identifying as what they want has no effect on your life whatsoever. Just because you choose to claim that it has an effect on your life doesn't mean it does.
Want to identify as the greatest person on earth. You might have feelings about that if you think that you're the greatest person on earth, or maybe you think your mom is the greatest person on earth. So my self-ID is going to abut your sense of how that reflects on everybody else, right?
Right.
And so you have to make a decision. It's within your right to say, Brianna, I'm not going to call you the greatest person on earth because I don't agree with that. And that's fine. But don't pretend like that. My right is still to self-identify that way. And everyone has to make a decision in a society about whether or not they want to be polite, gracious, kind to people who are in different places, and But if I meet Muhammad Ali, if I were to have met Muhammad Ali, I'm not going to be like, you're not the greatest, actually. You know what I mean? I'm going to be like, okay, with all due respect, you've done a lot. You are the greatest. I'm happy to call you that, even if in my secret heart.
Okay, so you're willing to call him Muhammad Ali, even though you know that's not his original name, and he changed it after becoming Muslim. So people have no issue with people changing their names as well as their gender. They just pretend to have an issue with it because they're just fucking bigots.
Of hearts, I actually think, Eugene Debs is the greatest or whatever. You know what I mean?
Like, what is our criteria for greatness here?
But that's the point. That's kind of the point. So I think,